You know, some stories, they're more than just stories. They feel like they're carved into history itself. They talk about epic kings, ancient foes, and structures so massive they literally hold the fate of the world. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful of these legends, the story of a great king, a terrifying enemy, and a wall built to hold back the end of the world. So let's just jump right in with this question. What if a wall could literally hold back the apocalypse? But here's the catch. Only for a little while. Imagine a barrier built not just from metal, but from prophecy. A dam holding back an ocean of chaos, knowing that one day it's destined to break. That's the story we're getting into today. All right, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off with this incredible king, a really powerful and just ruler known as Dhul-Qarnain. He's on a journey that takes him to the absolute edges of the earth, and it's there, between two massive mountains, that he finds a community living in a state of constant, crippling fear. These people come to him, and they are desperate. They tell him about these relentless tribes, Ya'juj and Ma'juj. You might know them as Gog and Magog. They describe them as a scourge, a force that swarms their lands, destroying and corrupting everything they touch. For these people, Gog and Magog were an unstoppable force of nature. Okay, so you're facing this existential threat. What do? Well, these people do what anyone would. They offer him everything. Piles of gold, a king's ransom, you name it. All he has to do is build a wall to protect them. But his answer? Wow. It shows you exactly what kind of leader he was. And this is just fantastic. He turns down their money. He basically says, look, what my Lord has given me is so much better than any treasure you could offer. Instead of wealth, he asks for something else entirely. Their strength, their hard work. This wasn't a job for hire. It was a joint mission, something they had to build together. So, the project begins. And we're not talking about some brick and mortar wall here. No way. This was going to be one of the most incredible engineering projects you could even imagine. A solid mountain of metal, literally forged in the valley between two cliffs. Dhul-Qarnain's plan was actually pretty simple in its design. But man, the effort it required was just staggering. It was going to take everyone, his own people and the locals, working side by side to pull this off. Okay, so how'd they do it? Step 1, gather the iron. And I mean a lot of iron. They stacked these huge pieces up, filling the whole gap between the mountains, all the way to the top. Step 2, heat it up. He commands them to blow. They use thousands of bellows to superheat the entire structure until this mountain of iron is glowing red hot. And then the masterstroke, seal it. They pour molten copper all over the top, which seeps into every single crack and fuses the whole thing into one solid, unbreakable mass. And it worked. The barrier was complete. This metallic mountain brought peace. Gog and Magog, they were trapped. They couldn't climb its smooth surface, and they couldn't possibly dig through it. For the first time, these people were safe. But, and this is a big but, the story is far from over. Right at this moment of triumph, when everyone's celebrating, Dhul-Qarnain drops a bombshell. He tells them that this incredible wall, this thing they all built together, it was never meant to last forever. It was just a temporary mercy. He says, this is a mercy from my Lord, but when the time of my Lord's promise comes, he will level it to the ground. So you see, the wall isn't just a wall. It's a prophecy set in iron. It's a clock, ticking down to one of the major signs that the end is near. Okay, so we gotta ask, who exactly are these tribes, Ya'juj and Ma'juj? The tradition is pretty clear on this. They're not some kind of monsters or demons. They're human, descendants of Adam, from the line of Noah's son, Japheth. And their eventual release from behind that barrier, well, that's a huge, huge sign of the end times. We know they're destructive, right? But that's not even the scariest part. Not by a long shot. The most terrifying thing about Gog and Magog is just how many of them there are. The numbers are, well, they're truly mind-boggling. So let's try to wrap our heads around this. Just how numerous are we really talking about here? Prepare yourself because the scale is almost impossible to comprehend. Okay, look at this ratio, 999 out of 1,000. According to a narration from the Prophet Muhammad on the day of resurrection, out of every 1,000 people destined for the fire, 999 of them will be from Gog and Magog. Let that sink in for a second. Now, you can imagine when the prophet's companions heard this, they were completely shaken. But he told them to rejoice, explaining that while Gog and Magog made up that huge number, his followers would be among the saved and would be a significant portion of the people in paradise. And to really paint a picture, he used this incredibly vivid metaphor. He said that believers, when compared to the massive numbers of Gog and Magog, are like a single black hair on the skin of a pure white ox. Just think about that image. A tiny speck. That's the scale we're dealing with. So what have these countless tribes been doing behind the wall all this time? They're not just waiting around. Nope. Every single day, they are trying to break out. It's a struggle that is destined to succeed. But it all comes down to one tiny, crucial change. So get this cycle. Every morning, they start digging at the wall. They dig and claw all day long until they can just about see sunlight peeking through. They're that close. But then their leader says, "All right, that's enough for today. We'll finish it tomorrow." They go to sleep, and overnight, poof, by divine will, the wall is made as strong as it was before. Every single day. This same pointless cycle goes on and on for ages, until one final day. On that day, their leader will say the same thing, but with 2 extra words. He'll say, "Go back, we will finish it tomorrow, if Allah wills." And that's the key. That simple act of submitting to a higher will breaks the cycle. They come back the next day, the hole is still there, and boom, the wall comes down. And what happens next is just pure chaos. They swarm across the earth from every direction, an unstoppable human tide. They will literally drink entire lakes dry as they pass. The rest of humanity has to flee and hide in fortresses. And in their supreme arrogance, they'll shoot arrows at the sky, and when they fall back down stained, they'll declare they've defeated the inhabitants of heaven too. But for all their power, their reign is very short. No human army can stop them. So their end comes from a divine source. God will send small worms that attack their necks, and in a single hour, the entire uncountable horde will perish. It just goes to show their immense power was ultimately nothing before the will of God. And that brings us to our final thought. Is this an incredible, detailed story of a literal iron wall holding back a physical enemy, or is it a timeless allegory, a metaphor for the constant struggle to maintain order, civilization, and faith against the ever-present forces of chaos? Maybe the power of the story isn't about finding a physical wall, but about recognizing the walls we all build and the prophecies we live by every single day.